Hello and welcome to the Novelist in English channel. Today's mission is taking a deep dive into an incredibly dark, truly multi-generational saga of obsessive love, absolute destruction, and meticulous revenge.
Yeah, set right against those desolate, windswept Yorkshire moors.
Exactly.
Mm.
We're looking, of course, at the source material for Wuthering Heights. But to you, the listener, I really want to frame this right out of the gate. Throw away whatever preconceived notions you have about polite, dusty Victorian romances.
Right, because that is definitely not what this is.
Not at all. This is a psychological masterclass in, toxic relationships, narcissistic abuse, and inherited trauma.
It really is.
This deep dive is for anyone who wants a shortcut to understanding one of literature's most intense, feral dynamics without, having to get lost in the incredibly dense 19th century text.
It really is a jarring experience when you first encounter it. The core mystery we were exploring today is truly chilling when you break it down. Like, how does a simple romantic disappointment,
Which is something people deal with every single day.
exactly, how does that transform a man into a multi-generational engine of pure, unadulterated vengeance? We aren't just looking at someone who gets angry and lashes out. We're looking at a deeply calculated, lifelong campaign to dismantle entire bloodlines.
To really understand how that happens, we have to start at the end, or rather, near the end, in the year 1801.
Right, our entry point.
Yeah, our entry point into this world is a character named Mr. Lockwood. Now, Lockwood is a profoundly naive, socially awkward gentleman from the refined south of England.
He really is out of his element there.
Completely. He heads up north to rent a beautiful estate called Thrushcross Grange, basically seeking some peace and quiet away from society.
And he decides to be neighborly, right?
He does. He visits his landlord of Mr. Heathcliff, who lives at a remote neighboring estate known as Wuthering Heights. And the vibe is immediately, hostile.
Hostile is putting it mildly.
Yeah.
It is a spectacular social disaster. Wuthering Heights is aggressively situated on this barren, windswept hill.
Oh, yeah, with the permanently bent trees.
It's exactly. Stunted by brutal storms, which is just a perfect physical manifestation of the people living inside. Heathcliff himself is sullen, highly suspicious, and entirely unwelcoming.
And doesn't Lockwood get attacked?
He actually gets attacked by a pack of ferocious dogs right there in the sitting room.
That is just insane.
Yeah, before a housekeeper named Zilla finally rescues him.
Right, and yet Lockwood just cannot take a hint. He is fueled by this truly misplaced arrogance that he can charm absolutely anyone.
It's almost funny how oblivious he is.
So he returns the very next day. This time, a lethal blizzard descends, and he is completely snowed in.
Trapped.
Trapped in this house that is utterly devoid of love or even basic human decency. He meets the rest of the miserable inhabitants, including this beautiful but furious young woman named Kathy.
And a brutish, rough young man named Hareton Earnshaw.
Yeah, and Lockwood makes a series of incredibly embarrassing conversational blunders, mostly because he assumes everyone fits into neat, polite societal boxes.
He fundamentally misunderstands the environment he has walked into. Because he is so entirely out of his depth, the housekeeper, Zilla, sneaks him into a forbidden oak-paneled bedchamber to sleep out the storm.
This is the famous bed, right?
Yes, it is a very strange piece of furniture, built like a massive wooden closet with a window inside it. Inside this claustrophobic space, Lockwood finds the windowsill covered in frantic carvings.
Just names scratched everywhere.
Right, just 3 names scratched over and over. Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Heathcliff, and Catherine Linton. He also finds these old religious books, and the margins are absolutely filled with a young girl's diary entries.
And those diaries are crucial, aren't they? They chronicle the tyrannical physical abuse that this young girl, Catherine, and her childhood companion, Heathcliff, suffered at the hands of her older brother, Hindley.
They set the whole stage for the trauma.
So Lockwood is reading this dark history, he is exhausted, he is feverish, and he falls into a series of terrifying nightmares. First, he dreams of a chaotic, violent church sermon by a fanatic named Jabez Branderham.
But the second nightmare is the one that really shatters his civilized worldview.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a deeply unsettling sequence. In the dream, Lockwood thinks he is woken by a branch tapping against the window. He thrusts his hand through the glass to snap the branch off.
Ugh, this part always gets though.
Yeah, because instead of wood, his fingers close around the freezing dead hand of a ghost.
It is such a horrific, visceral image. The ghost is weeping out in the freezing storm, begging to be let in, saying she lost her way on the moor, and it identifies itself as Catherine Linton.
And Lockwood absolutely panics.
He does. He doesn't show compassion at all. He brutally rubs the ghost's fragile wrist against the jagged, broken glass until spectral blood seemingly runs down the pane.
Just awful.
His screams end up waking the entire house, and Heathcliff bursts into the room. Okay, let's unpack this. Lockwood is like a guy walking into a movie halfway through without knowing the plot.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
He thinks he is just renting a nice country house, but he has actually stumbled into an active emotional war zone. Why does Heathcliff react to a supposed ghost story not with logic, or by calling Lockwood crazy, but with complete, devastating emotional collapse?
What's fascinating here is the absolute absence of skepticism. Heathcliff doesn't dismiss Lockwood's terrifying story as just a fever dream.
Right. He fully believes it.
He does. Instead, his reaction is violent and tragic. He forcefully banishes Lockwood from the room, throws open the window to the freezing blizzard, and weeps uncontrollably, begging Catherine's ghost to come in.
It is just so raw.
His profoundly raw, agonizing display of passion completely paralyzes Lockwood. And for you listening, this is the moment you realize Heathcliff isn't just a one-dimensional villain.
He has this deeply broken, tragically sensitive soul permanently trapped beneath his monstrous exterior.
Exactly. It shows us that the past in this house is never actually dead. It is a living, breathing entity that dictates everything.
It is so intense that Lockwood essentially flees back to the Grange at the break of dawn, totally traumatized.
I mean, who wouldn't be?
Seriously. He immediately corners his housekeeper, Nellie Dean, and begs her to explain the backstory of these absolute lunatics. Nellie used to work at Wuthering Heights, so she has all the tea.
She knows everything.
She tells him that years earlier, this wild girl, Catherine, miraculously survived a brain fever after she lost Heathcliff. Heathcliff had run away into the night after overhearing Catherine say it would degrade her to marry him.
Even though they were basically soulmates.
Exactly. So Catherine marries the gentle, highly civilized Edgar Linton, trading her wild, feral existence on the moors for the luxurious, safe confines of Thrushcross Grange.
But we have to understand that this marriage creates a very deceptive, fragile peace.
How so?
Well, for 3 years, Edgar treats Catherine with the terrified caution one might reserve for a highly volatile, unexploded bomb.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he orchestrates his entire household to avoid any trigger that might upset her delicate nerves.
That sounds exhausting.
It is a sterile, artificially sweet existence. Catherine is playing the role of the polite Victorian lady, but it requires suppressing every authentic part of who she is.
So what does this all mean? To me, Catherine's domestic life with Edgar is like keeping a wild, feral falcon in a gilded cage.
That is a great analogy.
It looks pretty to the outside world, and the falcon is being fed the best food, but it goes against its fundamental nature. And a bird like that is eventually going to tear itself apart or tear the cage apart.
Precisely.
The cage door officially swings open on a calm September evening when Heathcliff returns.
Exactly. And his return is a masterstroke of psychological manipulation. He is no longer the ragged, abused plowboy who ran away.
Right? He's totally changed.
He has mysteriously transformed into a wealthy, highly educated gentleman with an imposing, almost military bearing. He has weaponized class mobility.
That is such a good point.
By returning as a gentleman, society has to accept him, even though his core is just as feral as ever.
And Catherine's reaction to seeing him is complete manic ecstasy. She entirely abandons all Victorian decorum, sprinting down the driveway to welcome him.
Which deeply disgusts her husband, Edgar.
Obviously. But Heathcliff isn't just back for a friendly reunion. He moves straight into Wuthering Heights and starts actively ruining his childhood abuser, Hindley.
He feeds Hindley's gambling addiction and alcoholism, slowly bankrupting him.
At the same time, he intentionally degrades Hindley's son, Hareton, molding him into an illiterate savage, basically doing to the boy exactly what Hindley did to Heathcliff years ago.
The cycle of abuse just continues.
And as if that is not enough, he starts courting Edgar's naive younger sister, Isabella. I have to ask, though, isn't seducing Isabella just petty compared to his grand revenge against Hindley? It feels like punching down.
It might seem petty on the surface, but this is meticulously calculated psychological warfare. Heathcliff isn't just throwing a tantrum here.
What is his angle, then?
He is aggressively dismantling the very foundations of both families by weaponizing their own specific weaknesses. With Hindley, he exploits the man's devastating grief over his late wife, using addiction as the tool.
Oh, wow.
And with Isabella, he preys upon her foolish, novel-reading romanticism. Isabella tragically mistakes Heathcliff's violent, brooding brutality for romantic heroism. She thinks she can fix him.
That never works out well.
Never. Heathcliff doesn't love her at all. He uses her solely as a heavily weaponized instrument of torture against Edgar. It definitively proves that his heart has become a barren wasteland, devoid of any real compassion.
He is just treating human beings as chess pieces.
Exactly.
And this toxic cocktail of suppressed wildness at the Grange, combined with Heathcliff's calculated malice, absolutely has to boil over.
It is inevitable.
And it does, right in the kitchen of Thrushcross Grange. Catherine snaps. She violently locks the door, throws the heavy iron key into the blazing hearth, and forces a physical confrontation between her weak, polite husband and the highly combat-trained Heathcliff.
Edgar's totally cornered.
He is. And he is forced to strike Heathcliff in the throat before fleeing to get his armed gardeners.
That deeply humiliating altercation is the irreversible breaking point for the trio. Edgar, finally pushed to his absolute limit, delivers a strict ultimatum.
He makes her choose.
Yes. Catherine must choose between a civilized, peaceful life with him or a violent, chaotic existence with Heathcliff. He demands she sever ties completely.
But for Catherine, whose soul is eternally, almost supernaturally fused with Heathcliff's, that logical choice is fundamentally impossible.
Right. Choosing one means destroying half of herself.
So she resorts to extreme self-destructive manipulation. She locks herself in her room and goes on a prolonged starvation strike.
She genuinely expects both of these men to eventually surrender, realize they cannot live without her, and weep at her door.
But Edgar thinks she is just throwing a childish tantrum and completely ignores her. By the time Nellie Dean and Edgar realize the severity of what she is doing to her own body, Catherine's mind is permanently broken by a brain fever.
It's a tragic miscalculation on her part.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We get this harrowing scene where, in her delirium, Catherine tears open her luxurious feather pillows with her teeth.
Such a powerful image.
She pulls out the falling feathers and meticulously sorts them, identifying them as coming from wild pigeons, lapwings, and moorcocks from the moors. To me, this looks like a desperate psychological regression to her untamed childhood.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a complete rejection of her luxurious but suffocating adult life at the Grange.
It is exactly that. She is physically dismantling the symbols of her artificial domesticity, the luxurious pillows, and yearning for the brutal, authentic reality of the rocky moors.
The lapwings and moorcocks represent freedom.
Freedom, wildness, and her true self, which she abandoned for social status. While she sinks into this fatal brain fever, Heathcliff ruthlessly seizes on the chaos.
Right, he elopes with Isabella.
He drags the foolish Isabella back to Wuthering Heights and subjects her to a horrifyingly abusive marriage. But crucially, Heathcliff cannot stay away from Catherine.
He secretly infiltrates the heavily guarded Grange while Edgar is away at church.
Yes.
And their final reunion is just devastating to read. If anyone goes into this expecting a tender, tearful Victorian goodbye, they are in for a shock.
It is anything but tender.
It is a terrifying, fiercely physical, almost violent clash. Catherine accuses Heathcliff of murdering her, and Heathcliff violently refuses to offer her any peaceful absolution.
He tells her he can forgive her for breaking his heart, but he can never ever forgive her for destroying her own soul by marrying Edgar.
Wow.
That distinction is the defining moment of their dark legacy. He is essentially saying, you killed yourself by betraying your own nature, and you killed me in the process.
Catherine dies later that very night, prematurely giving birth to a daughter, young Cathy. When Heathcliff receives the news from Nellie Dean out in the garden, he completely loses any remaining shred of sanity.
It's a deeply disturbing scene.
He repeatedly smashes his head against the trunk of a massive oak tree until he bleeds, violently cursing Catherine's spirit. He demands that she never rest in peace.
He begs her ghost to actively haunt him.
To drive him insane, just so he is never left alone in the abyss without her. He practically summons the ghost that Lockwood sees decades later.
And then there's the funeral. Edgar Linton, the man obsessed with society and rules, actually breaks entirely with tradition here.
He does, and it's a moment of profound, surprising respect from a character who is often dismissed as weak.
Edgar's final act for his wife is acknowledging her true nature. He refuses to bury her in the enclosed, highly respectable Linton family vault beneath the church.
Where does he put her?
Instead, he orders her grave to be dug outside the churchyard walls, right on the exposed, wild edge of the moors she loved so deeply.
That brilliantly symbolizes her eternal connection to the wild earth, breaking all Victorian societal norms and definitively closing the first generation's chaotic, destructive romance.
But with Catherine physically gone, Heathcliff's only remaining tether to humanity just violently snaps.
He transforms from a heartbroken lover into a cold-blooded machine. And because Hindley and Edgar are largely out of his reach or dying, he aims all of that complex vengeance squarely at the completely innocent second generation.
The story jumps forward 12 years.
There is a deceptive piece. Edgar heavily shelters young Cathy at the Grange, entirely hiding the dark history of Wuthering Heights from her.
While over at the Heights, Hindley drinks himself to death.
Isabella flees, but eventually dies in the south of England. And the moment she dies, Heathcliff uses his legal rights as a father to claim Isabella's sickly, pathetic son, Linton.
And Heathcliff makes absolutely no secret of his disgust for his own biological child. He doesn't want to be a father.
No, he views this coughing, sniveling boy exclusively as a vital legal pawn.
Under the property laws of the time, if Heathcliff can force a marriage between his son Linton and Edgar's daughter Cathy, he can legally steal Thrushcross Grange away from the Linton bloodline forever.
Meanwhile, over those 12 years, he has completely degraded the rightful Earnshaw heir, Hareton,
into an illiterate, swearing servant who works the land.
The tragic irony is that Hareton actually idolizes Heathcliff as a father figure, completely unaware that Heathcliff stole his inheritance.
Which brings us back to young Cathy.
She is 16, incredibly spirited, and completely ignorant of the profound danger lurking just across the moors.
She sneaks out one day, encounters Hareton at Wuthering Heights, and deeply humiliates him by mistaking him for a common servant.
Heathcliff watches all of this, and he uses her wandering nature to spring his trap. He manipulates Cathy into a secret courtship with the dying Linton.
Heathcliff actually uses terrifying physical violence behind closed doors to face his own dying son to write fake, highly romantic love letters to play on Cathy's compassionate nature.
I have to push back on Edgar's parenting here, though. By keeping Cathy in a deeply sheltered, ignorant bubble, hasn't Edgar left her completely lacking the emotional immune system needed to survive a manipulative virus like Heathcliff?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, I hear your point about the bubble, but we have to look at how trauma repeats itself when met with avoidance.
Right. Hiding it doesn't fix it.
Exactly. Edgar thought ignorance was protection. He wanted to shield her from the horrors he witnessed. But you were right, it only made Cathy perfectly vulnerable to Heathcliff's manipulation.
She doesn't know how to recognize a predator.
Heathcliff's utter ruthlessness here is staggering. He is actively, intentionally sacrificing his own dying son, physically beating him to force him to court a girl just to secure a land grab.
It is so twisted.
It illustrates the terrifying extent of his hollow victory. He will destroy absolutely everything, including his own flesh and blood, in the name of an ancient ghost.
The trap is meticulously set, and it violently springs shut right as Edgar Linton lies on his deathbed.
Heathcliff leverages Cathy's desperate, empathetic desire to see Linton one last time, luring both Cathy and Nellie Dean into Wuthering Heights.
The second those heavy carved doors shut, Heathcliff takes them hostage. He absolutely refuses to let Cathy return to her beloved father's deathbed unless she legally submits to a loveless, horrifying mock marriage to his dying son.
It is the absolute breaking point of psychological torture for young Cathy. Terrified that her father will die alone, she completely surrenders her agency and marries Linton.
But she manages a frantic, perilous nighttime escape across the moors, just in bare time to hold Edgar as he peacefully passes away.
Completely unaware of the massive tragedy that has swallowed his daughter's future.
But Heathcliff's victory is so cold and mechanical. He swoops in with a chilling legal precision, claiming Thrushcross Grange as his own property now that Edgar is gone and Cathy is married to his son.
Soon after, the pathetic Linton succumbs to his illness and dies.
This leaves Cathy a destitute, bitter prisoner, stripped of her wealth and title, trapped in a hostile house full of insane men, which, if you're tracking the timeline, is exactly the miserable domestic reality Mr. Lockwood stumbled into at the very beginning of our deep dive.
Exactly. The narrative timeline finally catches up to itself. Lockwood, thoroughly horrified by everything Nellie Dean has told him about his landlord, decides he wants absolutely nothing to do with these people and flees back to the civilized society of London.
But Wuthering Heights isn't done with us yet. When Lockwood returns to the area several months later on a whim, something miraculous has happened.
A whole atmosphere has shifted.
Heathcliff's massive, multi-generational engine of revenge isn't defeated by an epic battle, or by the authorities, or by a hero with a sword. It is defeated by a simple, quiet act of empathy.
Cathy, who had become so bitter, sees Hareton trying to sound out words in a book.
Her frozen heart begins to thaw. She apologizes for mocking him and starts teaching the illiterate Hareton to read. They begin this innocent, redeeming relationship.
It changes everything.
To me, it is like a raging forest fire that simply runs out of oxygen. Heathcliff built this inferno of hate, but these two kids refuse to throw any more logs on the fire.
This raises an important question. Why does Heathcliff just give up? At the exact moment, he possesses unquestionable financial and physical control over everything he ever wanted to destroy. He owns the Grange, he owns the Heights, he controls the heirs, he undergoes a massive psychological breakdown.
She just stops.
He simply loses the will to maintain his vengeance. The fire goes out. He stops eating, spending agonizing days staring into empty space, whispering to invisible apparitions.
And his death is just bizarre, almost ecstatic. He is found dead in that same claustrophobic oak-paneled bed where Lockwood had the ghost nightmare at the beginning of our story.
Smiling.
Yes, Heathcliff is smiling, his eyes are wide open in terrifying joy, and the lattice window is violently swinging open, letting the freezing Yorkshire rain wash over his face.
He didn't die of a physical ailment, but of a complete spiritual detachment. Once his revenge was achieved, he realized it didn't bring Catherine back.
He had nothing left.
His powerful, dark soul violently tore away from his physical body to finally eternally reunite with Catherine's ghost on the moors.
The multi-generational cycle of trauma is finally broken because the new generation, Cathy and Hareton, fundamentally refuse to inherit the bitter resentment of their parents.
They plan to marry on New Year's Day, symbolizing a fresh start. And they intend to abandon the dark shadows of Wuthering Heights for the peaceful light of Thrushcross Grange.
And the deep dive ends right where Lockwood's journey finishes, marveling at the quiet, peaceful graves of Edgar, Catherine, and Heathcliff under the fluttering moths on the wild moors.
It is a hauntingly beautiful final image.
It really is. It brings us to a final, provocative thought to leave you with. If Heathcliff and Catherine were truly soulmates with an unearthly, unbreakable bond, is their intense, obsessive love actually the villain of this story? Or is the rigid, civilized Victorian society that forced them to suppress their true, untamed natures the real monster all along? Subscribe and follow us to stay updated on our content. Goodbye.